Hey everybody, and welcome to another piano review here at Merriam Pianos. In this video, we are going to be exploring the ED Seiler 132. This is a 52-inch upright and a rather interesting and novel approach to where it came from, its origins. It's basically a replica of the German SE 132 Seiler, and quite a successful one at that. We're going to be talking about its sound and its action, the components that contribute to all that. But if you are a customer out there looking for a 52-inch piano, and the only ones on your list so far are Yamaha U3 or Kawai K500, you're going to want to stop and pay a little more attention to this one. It is a compelling option, it's a very interesting option, and it's in exactly the same kind of price range. So, if it's the first time to the channel and you are enjoying what you're seeing, you find it entertaining or useful, then please subscribe because we'd love to see you back for more videos, and feel free to comment throughout. We respond to as many of those as we possibly can. So without further ado, let's get started with the ED Seiler 132 right away. We're in front of the ED Seiler 132. For people who are new to this brand or new to this model, let's just quickly give you the context and background on it. It's a 52-inch upright piano, acoustic of course, and it is part of the ED Seiler line. And the ED Seiler line is a really interesting, novel kind of project or an idea that Seiler's put out into the market. And here it is. They've got an equivalent German product called the SE 132, and they have the same thing for the 126, the SE 126. Now those are full German instruments, gorgeous pianos, really, that sit in about the same ilk as, say, Bechstein Academy or, say, Schimmel Concert Series or Sauter, kind of in that range. And what they've tried with the ED Seiler line is more or less to build a replica of those German pianos in Indonesia. So it's not as loose or as undefined as saying that there's, Seiler DNA in the Indonesian thing, and really it's just a stencil piano with the Seiler brand on it, because goodness knows there's been enough examples of that in our industry. So that's not what we're talking about. We're actually talking about the use of the exact same plate, the exact same soundboard cut, solid spruce, the exact scale design, and then assembled in a completely different factory with obviously a more affordable workforce and slightly lower grade bridge, strings, hammers, and not the same cut of spruce. So, and the result of that is you get it for about somewhere in the third to a quarter of the price of the full German. But you are still very much getting quite the enjoyable instrument. So, I'm going to play the instrument. I'm going to share with you my thoughts on the piano. We just did the ED Seiler 126, so my memory of that instrument is very, very fresh. And I'm noticing some interesting differences between the two models, but still just going to generally share with you my thoughts and opinions about this instrument. So let's take a listen to the ED Seiler 126, or sorry, the ED Seiler 132. start with the tone, and we'll go through every range of the instrument and just talk a little bit about what it's giving me. So first, let's start with the bass. So what I'm getting on this is very similar to what I got on the 126, quite a round bass tone. And a surprising level of consistency in that lower octave. I've said it in a few other reviews, it's not that easy to build or to make great bass strings that all kind of have the same character. So the lower octave and a half is quite similar to the 126. Not brassy, almost no unwanted overtones there at all. The break, that transition between the steel strings down to the copper strings, is quite even. So like the 126, it handles that better than most upright pianos in this type of price bracket. And it's pretty cool, the pairing of the Abel hammers and the way they've got that voiced, you really are able to draw a very different brassiness out of these bass tones as you push them a little bit harder. Without it ever becoming strident or distorted. Really like the lower third of this instrument. Up into the tenor range. So in this mid-range here, you're getting lots of the fundamental and a lot of very clear upper partials through this as well. This is kind of tonal profile you'd normally expect up in the top upper 2 octaves. And it's interesting because I notice exactly the same behavior on the full German SE 132. So some people's ear is going to hear this as a bright sound. You know, or a sparkly sound or something that's got lots of life and energy to it. And quite a different character than the 126 in the same range, which is a very different balance between, say, the cabinet resonance and some of that woody tone that you get around the sound versus the fundamental and its upper partials. Some really gorgeous notes through here. This is definitely a sweet spot for this instrument. And then as we move up into the treble, quite the bell-like tone up there. Yeah, and just as I was getting in the mid-range, the upper range here, certainly you are getting some of that cabinet resonance up here. But there's definitely more of the fundamental tone. So a bit more precise in the treble than what I get on the 126, which is giving you more of an ethereal, texture. Chopin is going to be just gorgeous on this. I mean, Chopin makes extensive use out of really complex, flowing melodic lines all through the upper mid to the upper range of his compositions. So let's talk about what's giving us this tone. On the instrument, we have a solid spruce soundboard. It's a tapered soundboard, but it has this other feature on it, and they've got sort of a funny branded name for it. But basically, it's a routing that they've done about 2 inches in from the outside edge of the soundboard, and somehow that contributes to an increased sustain and activation at a lower energy level. Most soundboards accomplish this by tapering. They've taken a different approach. I don't know if this was stumbled on by accident or, as I said in another review, whether this was something that was a fairly obvious solution if you're, an acoustic engineer. I don't know. solid spruce soundboard. Then we've got spruce back posts. They're not particularly large, but they are focused towards the treble, so they're not evenly spaced. And on the 132, there's two hard points that connect straight to those back posts from the rim, and that could be why we're getting that different kind of character, that different sort of tone out of the treble and sort of the upper mid-range here, as opposed to the 126, which doesn't have that extra hard point on the top. The piano uses Abel hammers. That's easy to see inside with the green underfelting. Abel is one of just a handful of hammer makers left in Germany. It's a real favorite of rebuilders because they make kind of a nice wide variety of weights, and you can order it with different types of woods. And generally a very nice, a very positive reputation out in the marketplace. Yeah, for people who know the German sound, this is way closer to the German sound, whereas what I was getting on, say, the ED Seiler 126, which you can also check out as a review, is not particularly German in its character. It's really kind of got its own thing going on. There's a darkness to it. There's a really interesting mix of all of this wood tone as well as the fundamental tone. I would almost treat the 132 and the 126 rather as the junior and the senior of the same flavor, is almost two equal but different options for you to consider. Their characters are so different. Another thing worth noting is that the action on the 132 is relatively shallow. Feels very responsive, and normally shallow actions have a tendency sometimes of also feeling heavy. This is really not the case. Also, extremely good, quick repetition speed on this action. They use an exposed wood texture on the black keys rather than a polished black plastic. I like that generally, and I mention this usually all the time when I'm talking about pianos. I really appreciate when the black key has a little bit of extra natural texture on that. The white key is very, very slightly textured, but on a quick glance, it more or less looks like a gloss white. And the piano comes with nickel trim available as well as a brass trim available. So it's a 52-inch piano, and I love the fact that this gives such a clear, distinctive option for people who were, let's say, normally only going to be looking at the usuals like the Yamaha U3 or the Kawai K500 in this type of a size and a price range. This is such a compelling third option to add to the list. and I know that it's not necessarily available in all markets. It's a fairly new project for Seiler and Samick, who's their parent company. But I certainly hope that this starts to enter more conversations, because I would say this is probably the most compelling option, alternative option to the Yamaha Kawai duopoly in this type of a range that I've played in a long time, possibly ever. Really very, very impressed with the musical depth of these instruments, the level of factory finish that these instruments are coming with, and the legitimate difference that they bring to the musical palette. Anyway, hope you have enjoyed this review of the ED Seiler 132. Please be sure to check out our review of the 126. I made mention of it a few times as well as all of the other reviews we've got on the channel, both acoustic and digital. We hope that you will consider subscribing, because we would love to see you back for more videos. Please feel free to comment and let us know what you thought of the instrument and the review, and hit that notification bell so that you will be sure to know every time we bring out a new video, which is usually several times per week. So have a great day, and we will see you again soon.